Intro real quick, and I'll intro all our names and channels. And oh, we're live. Look at that. Let's hope it's all working. That's the beauty of it. Technology is not my strong suit, man. Cool. All right. Well, hey guys, welcome. If you're out there and you're jumping on this live stream with us, I'm pretty excited. I was just mentioning I didn't sleep well last night because of all the technology side of live streaming on 2 YouTube channels at one time. Full disclosure, my wife figured it out, not me, but I'm just here pushing the buttons and talking. That's something I can do. So quick intro. If you're coming from either of the YouTube channels that we're live streaming on, my name's Seth Horst, my business partner, Dave Faller. We own Your North Idaho Agent, which is a real estate business here in North Idaho. We are all first responders and veterans, and we like to keep it that way. We service those with conservative values that are looking to escape states like Washington, California, Oregon, and find their freedom here in North Idaho. I got to remember to say California, Oregon, Washington, because then I can call them cows, right? I'll get there. But welcome. We have a special guest today. We've got William Kirk from Washington Gun Law. He's got a YouTube channel over there in Washington that covers gun laws. And we really wanted to have him come on because there's a lot of similarities of things that are happening in Washington that could potentially happen in Idaho, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're going to talk about that today and dive into a little bit of gun laws, his background, and go from there. So real quick, if you're coming from our YouTube channel residing in North Idaho, jump over to William's channel, Washington Gun Law, subscribe to his channel. He's got amazing content. And likewise, if you're on Washington Gun Laws, jump over to residing in North Idaho. We are a community and lifestyle YouTube channel here. So hit that subscribe button for us. I've got a bet with somebody that we can't cap 10,000 subscribers today. Prove me wrong. There's a steak dinner in it for me. So let's go. One more thing before we jump in fully. We've got, oh, look at all these people jumping on. Cool. Lots of people hopping in. Thank you, guys. We've got a sponsor today. This is the first for me and Dave. North Idaho Arms, our buddy BZ. He's also friends with you.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got a wonderful gun shop right over the Washington border in Post Falls. It is at 4013 West Riverbend Ave, Post Falls, North Idaho Arms. Super solid dude. He's passionate about the Second Amendment fight here in Idaho. And he just did a Fox News interview, went out today, and excellent guy. So,
and a guy who had to make the escape himself from Washington State.
He knows
just
the
recently,
deal.
Yeah,
yes.
He just lived it.
Yes. So thanks, BZ, for sponsoring this podcast. We've got his shirts on, got some mugs, and I'm heading over there to buy a shotgun from him later today. My wife does not know yet. So,
well, she does now.
Damn it. She's listening in the other room.
She knows.
She didn't say no, right? So that's consent, I think. No?
I don't know.
We'll
talk about
it's
consent.
acquiescence, but not consent.
Well, thank you for joining us, man. We've got so many things to talk about today, but I guess like jumping right in, how did you even get in the YouTube business? Because you were an attorney, a defense attorney. You're sitting in the room with 2 former cops.
No, that's okay. Hey, if you talk to the officers back in Washington State, they'll tell you I take good care of
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I do.
I do. Great amount of respect. No, I had after I got out of Gonzaga Law School, not far from here actually, got in with the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office, and then I got to go back home to King County, work for the King County Prosecutor's Office. We had a prosecuting attorney back there by the name of Norm Mailing. So one of the great pleasures of my life was to be able to work for Mr. Mailing. Got hired away by the top DUI attorney in the state of Washington in 2000, carved out a really successful DUI practice where I candidly did really well for myself, but I never had a passion for that field. There was no cause. What are you doing? Just getting the drunk driver back on the road, right? And then about 2019, I had an opportunity to go to work for a self-defense insurance company, and I wanted to brand something out different than what I was currently doing. So that's why I created Washington Gun Law. And it was really just a website that was kind of a depository of information. But then along comes the summer of 2020, and in Washington State, we shut everything down. Right. And when I say shut everything down, we shut everything down. So that means that your bars, your restaurants, your concert venues, and your sporting events are all non-existent.
We were very familiar with this because everybody came over to North Idaho,
right?
Which my kids will tell you
to have a life,
right?
Yes,
my kids will tell you this was their best time in North Idaho was when COVID hit. because we had access to everything when everybody else didn't.
Oh, you mean you live like normal human
We
beings?
lived like if better than
Wow,
normal
that's
humans,
an amazing-
because I mean, even the water park up here was 25% capacity. So you go in and the kids were
had the place
done.
to yourself.
They were done in like an hour. They're like, we've been
Yeah.
on every ride 10
Yeah.
times. We're
So
ready to go.
yeah, during our summer of love, there back in King County, the phone's ringing off the hook. It's just ringing off the hook, but everyone's asking the same question, like, what do I do if I accidentally drive into an Antifa rally? What do I do if they're throwing Molotov cocktails into my business? Because this is the life that we were living in the greater Seattle area that summer. And so I started a YouTube channel simply just to help with the volume of calls. So we could just say, hey, check out the YouTube channel. We got the answers there for you. And one thing led to another. And of course, I didn't have anything else to do that summer of 2020. I had nothing to do. And if I stayed home, my wife was going to kill me. So, I needed to go to the office. So I literally went to the office and started making YouTube videos just to pass time.
when okay, so you start making YouTube videos.
Yeah.
When did you realize, like, oh, damn, I'm onto something here?
Okay. So here's the story. Someone had asked me, hey, can you do a video about suppressor laws in Washington State? I said, sure. So I geek out one night, do all the research, do the video the next day. The day after, my Facebook page starts getting inundated with all these ads for solvent traps. Okay. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on? What's a solvent? What's this all about? So I start doing the research and I'm like, oh, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I did a video a couple days later. I was like, hey, solvent trap, bad idea. Don't do it. I think ATF's going to come knocking at your door someday. Right. And the hate mail came in. God damn it, Kirk, you're not a 2A lawyer. All of this stuff. The video only got like 8,500 hits. It wasn't a big deal. About 6 months later, I'm just sitting there and all of a sudden Google starts alerting me that this video has gotten like 30,000 views in a day. Like, what's going on there? Well, what had happened is that ATF had raided the solvent trap manufacturers, got their shipping manifestos, sent letters to all of these people and said, hey, we think you got an unlawful suppressor. We want to talk to you. And then I got to do the big I told you so video. Like, I told you so. I told you don't do this. And that was the first time I realized when I did my first video on how to deal with the ATF if you got that letter. That was the first time I had a video go over 100,000 views. And that's when I'm like, oh, there's a national audience out there.
Yeah, people care. They want to know. The problem is there's so much misinformation out there. People don't know their rights.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to just about anybody down the road and I can say, I used to do this in fire department all the time. It was fun. You go, what's your First Amendment? They tell me. What's your Second Amendment? They tell me. What's your Third Amendment? Nobody has an idea.
Yeah.
And the problem is that we're not as educated as we could be. So people have questions about that.
Yeah. Well, it takes somebody who just passed the citizenship exam. They'll know way more than a person that's lived here their whole life.
Totally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Oh man.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing, but it's true, right?
But the thing I've noticed about gun owners, lawful, responsible gun owners, and the statistics back this up, is that it is the most law-abiding community in America. In fact, if you take a look at the crime per capita of concealed carry holders, it's actually lower than college-educated Asians. And you can imagine how low the crime rate is amongst college-educated Asians. So it is absolutely one of the most lawful demographic groups in the United States. And so the truth is if you tell these folks where the lines are, most of them are going to scribble inside of them. And that's my job. My job is to take these very big, complicated pieces of legislation or case law and break it down into simple English so that everybody, regardless of education level or that, they say, okay, I understand what's going on. I understand what I can do and what I can't do.
It's so helpful to have that. So I did a video called Idaho Gun Laws, and it got like, I don't know, it's up to like 190,000 views. And at the beginning, I was like, I am not an expert. And still, I got hundreds of comments about, oh, you got this wrong, you got that wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm not an expert. But we have an expert today. And that's so nice.
It is nice. And we got a lot of questions for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions out there in the community. But before we go forward, I want to back up to something. So you said when you were in Seattle, you had a lot of people reaching out to you. And this kind of ties in with what you just said about lawful gun owners. You talked about the fact, people are asking, what do I do if I go into these Antifa riots or anything else? You're familiar with the riots over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Spokane. And so I was in law enforcement up here with Coeur d'Alene. During that time, this is my experience as a police officer, right? During COVID. And I'm sure you saw, it made it on the New York Times in the newspaper front page, downtown Coeur d'Alene. If you haven't seen it, you go and you type in Coeur d'Alene, downtown Antifa riots, anything else. We probably had, I think the estimates were 800 to 1,000 lawfully abiding citizens downtown strapped to the T. I'm talking, Yeah, people were driving around in trucks. People had ARs. People were, people were geared up.
Have you
And
seen the battle bus?
I don't know if I.
There's a
battle bus.
I don't know who.
I want to see the battle
If you know
bus.
who has this bus, please comment. I need to know.
Yeah.
It's a school bus that's been converted. The back end has been cut off, and they have a side by side that drives up on there. This thing's like murdered out. It's a freaking battle bus, and that shit was rolling
It's
around
like Road
downtown.
Warriors.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
So we have all these people with guns downtown, right? I mean, it was nerve wracking, I think, for everybody because you haven't seen that in a lot. That's foreign.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a community come together where all of a sudden you have 1,000 people downtown, men, women. I mean, just walking around armed.
Yeah.
And so you're like, what's going to happen? And you know what happened? Nothing. In fact, so far, nothing is that when we protect the First Amendment right too. And they even told the people that were coming into town to do their walk and everything else. They said, hey, we protect your right. We're not even going to march with you. Some of them did. And they said, but you're not going to destroy anything here. You're not going to be violent. You're not going to disrupt communities. You're going to do your thing and we'll support you. They did their march. They left. Nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, our society is a polite society.
It was incredible.
100%. And it's so important. Like people, I saw firsthand. So I was finishing my career with the California Highway Patrol in Sacramento during the George Floyd riots. And I watched Antifa and BLM absolutely destroy Sacramento. And for political reasons, cops were told to stand down. And to see mom and pop businesses downtown, they're done. Like they're not coming back.
No.
And to find a community like Coeur d'Alene that stands up for the business owners in town, is willing to do something about it, so that doesn't happen here. That's huge. Like that's
and you see it in a community like this is that the locals are going to stand up for every business owner, regardless of their political background.
100%.
Right? Because it's about the sanctity of the community as a whole.
Right.
Right. And so when you have community pride, like you have here in cities like Coeur d'Alene, you have that. Back home where I'm from, Seattle, we have no community pride. There's no pride in the community whatsoever.
It's a different kind of pride.
Well, yeah, that's a different kind of pride. Yeah. But in the community itself, we don't have any.
Yeah.
And that's reflected on how the law enforcement is supported in Seattle.
Which is terrible.
5 years
right?
ago, we had 1,200 officers in Seattle. Now we have about 600. So we're running 50%.
And the call volume has not gone down. I can guarantee that. Right. So
absolutely.
So yeah, your services are just lacking everywhere.
And that is one, that's another thing over here. We do support our law enforcement. I can tell you that it was weird for me. This is the only place I've been in law enforcement, right? I wasn't in law enforcement in California. I was a fireman down there. People liked me.
Everyone loves a firefighter.
Right. But I got in more fights down there than I did up here, which is weird. Anyways. But I will say, like, people support law enforcement. And it was strange when we would get laterals that would lateral up here from another state. And this is all the law enforcement experience I have, right? North Idaho, the best place to be in law enforcement. People come up downtown around the bars. They'd shake your hands. They'd want to give you hugs. And I got very used to it, right? They almost sit in the white a little bit. Probably shouldn't be. I'd get people from out of town that would come up laterals and somebody'd go to walk up to them and they'd want to step back, go, hey, these are friendlies up here. These people want you around. They want to support you.
They're happy to see you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing.
It's a weird shift.
It is.
Like, I work down there. Like I've been on that side of it. I've driven around town and had 7-year-old kids like flipping me off. And that's the reality of it working in California.
But I think you guys got to also put credit where it's also due in that when you have that integration between law enforcement and the community, it's really a two-way street. So yeah, you have the community that's supporting law enforcement, but then your law enforcement departments are acting in a manner that makes them worthy of supporting, right? They've
100%.
They've ingrained themselves into a community in a way where, yeah, they're taking out the bad guys, but they're doing it in a way that everyone really respects and admires and things like that. Because there are communities that are over-policed. And over-policing
100%.
will create animosity towards law enforcement as well. So over-policing and under-policing both creates it. And so you got to find that fine balance. And it seems like what you guys have going on here is that fine balance.
It is. Yeah. And Dave and I take a lot of credit in promoting the police departments up here. I think we are single-handedly their best recruiters from our YouTube channel and podcast.
Absolutely. If you're a law enforcement officer from somewhere else and you're moving up here and talking to us, you're a good person. We're absolutely going to put you in contact with the right people because we want those good people serving this community.
Yeah. Because there are a lot of men and women in that job that they signed up to do the job and they can't do it wherever they're at right now. And how frustrating is that? Like, I want to help people. I want to help the community, but I can't even arrest someone for methamphetamine in whatever state.
Well, or, you take a look at what's happened back in my state, the police pursuit bill. Oh, yeah. We had a deal where you couldn't even pursue criminals. And they were emboldened. In fact, I was talking to the Walla Walla County Sheriff last night, told me about a high-speed pursuit that started in Oregon, And the guy intentionally kept going to Washington because he knew once he got to Washington, Washington wouldn't be able to chase him.
Right. I mean, how do these policymakers think that's going to turn out?
It's crazy.
Well, the main policymaker for that particular piece of legislation now wants to be the Washington State Attorney General. So
how terrifying
buckle
is that?
up.
How terrifying is that?
Horribly terrifying.
And that is terrifying. At least up here, I mean, we have different Republican groups up here, and they do go to battle, and that just drives me nuts when you have people that are really on the same side of the fence, causing their own fight. But I'm happy with either one of them. I'm happy with the fact that they all have the same, just because they can't agree on one or two things, they find those reasons to argue. Right. But I'm happy that that's where the fight is, and it's not on either side of the fence.
Yeah. And back in Washington State, we have complete dysfunctionality in the Republican Party right now.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah, not really.
How do you fix that?
How do you fix that? I think there needs to be a philosophical understanding that I think that conservatives as a whole needs to start getting rid of this rhino label. I think that, you know, when I used to run some campaigns back when I was out of college and stuff, I'm a firm believer that campaigns are only about math. Who gets more votes than the other person? Shockingly, that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
We can deal with the policy once we get them in office, but let's get them in office first, right? And I think that when you're already mathematically the minority party and you're trying to run your party on exclusivity rather than inclusiveness, you're never going to be able to achieve the numbers you want. So I'm a big opponent of Rhino. I think that for some reason there's this huge 12-item checklist, and if you don't check all of them, then you're not really a Republican.
Right.
Well, I'd rather take a Republican that's got 9 of those checked off than any Democrat, because they're going to have 0 of them checked off.
Right.
And for a state like Washington, that's really blue. There's a big battle between a very moderate Republican and a person who claims to be very, very conservative. And those people that are supporting the conservative are really, really just tearing apart this moderate because he's not conservative enough for them. But the truth is before you can run, you got to walk. And so for Washington to go from deep, deep blue, we got to start first shading it to baby blue. Yeah. And so that's how we do it.
Are you feeling that momentum building? Like, are people getting fed up at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there is a huge segment of what I used to call the old school Democrats. So when I was growing up, I'm older than both you guys, but when I was growing up, the Democrats that we would worry about. Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, but the Democrats I would worry about would be a little bit on high taxes, and they were kind of pussies about national defense. That was it, right?
Right.
But they still believed that men were men and women were women and things, you know, simple biological things like that. And so I think that a lot of those people who have those types of mildly liberal values feel abandoned by the current progressive movement in Washington State. Okay. And so that's why I think a very moderate candidate like a Dave Reichert, who right now is running in Washington State, actually has a chance to win that election.
Some people are just so entrenched, you know, it's like they're just blue all the way through, and like they'll vote for that all day long, and it doesn't matter the person. I don't know how to break out of that mold of like, actually look at the person.
Well, modern progressivism is not a political movement anymore. It's a religion, or it's a cult.
Yes.
Okay. It is. It's a cult in many ways. And I know some people will be upset at me saying that, but listen, when you begin to detach yourself from reality,
right,
you're engaged in cult-like behavior. Okay. And this whole trans movement and all of this stuff is a detachment from reality.
Well, we've gotten to the point where we're so simple now that we'll grab onto a headline and we don't read the article. Mm-hmm. And so it's much easier for me to get into a political statement and say, you know what, guns are bad, and then just run with it and not look into why is somebody saying that they're bad? What are the implications? What actually are they there for? How do you make it safe? What are your rights involved with it? People don't want all the information. They just want the little bit. So it is very cultish.
And this whole thing about guns are bad. Okay. You guys are in law enforcement, right?
Yep.
You know this. You've all dealt with drunk driving accidents.
Many.
Right? I spent a lot of years defending those people.
Yeah.
Okay. And we got those accidents where people get killed, right? Whole family can get slaughtered by a drunk driver. Happens.
Yep.
After every one of those cases, do we ever talk about banning the cars or the booze?
Right.
No. But some nut job goes in and shoots a place up, and suddenly it's the gun's the gun's fault. We never focus on the maniac behind the trigger. But in the drunk driving setting, we always focus on the idiot that was behind the wheel.
Well, it seems like such a damn logical argument to me. I don't understand why people can't wrap their brains around that, because that's usually the example I use when I'm dealing with someone.
Yeah.
So, hey, real quick though, someone asked, this is a question for you. Where is it? Bill Kirk hinted in a prior vid that there might be a chance that he's moving to Idaho. Bill, are you moving to Idaho?
Well, if I do, I will be working with these guys. I want you to know that. And Kristen, this is a good time to go ahead and put a link for everything down below for these guys right here, right now.
Thank you.
And that's true. I would work with you guys. So I have
Appreciate it.
jokingly said that. And I was talking before we went on air. I was talking that I've been kind of looking at North Idaho as a place to live for about 10 years. I have noticed that the property values have changed significantly around.
Yeah.
Here. Guys are in high demand around here right now for some reason.
They are. He just bought a house. He's going to burn it down. That's how much he likes that one. So
well,
there's some truth to that, actually. Hey, whoa, I'm not intentionally going to burn it down. We're going to do a controlled burn through the fire department. Careful how you say that. Just in case something happens, I don't want to be thrown down.
we're going to give your house back to the
Yeah.
county.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
So if the election, if the trifecta occurs in Washington State, there's 3 races I'm very carefully watching. If we lose all 3 of them, I'll probably be calling you guys in November.
Let's go. We'll find you something.
That's
Something
stressful.
nice and secluded.
Well, let me tell you something. I last night I was down at the Walla Walla County Lincoln Day dinner. Okay. And I told the story. And I'll tell you guys the story too. So the very first Kirk to ever come to the United States hopped off a ship in Nova Scotia in about the 1850s. His name was William Halliday Kirk. And William Halliday made his way all the way down to Illinois, became a farmer down in Illinois. And then in 1861 enlisted in the Illinois National Guard 2nd Cavalry and went and fought in the Civil War.
Holy
Highly
smokes.
decorated soldier. Okay, very decorated soldier. He mustered out in about 1864. And then at that point, the Union soldiers were given a lot of opportunities to accumulate land out in the Western territories as debt for their service to the country.
Okay.
So he ended up accumulating 40 acres of land, but it was all the way out in the Washington territory. So in 1883, no joke, 1883, he hops on a wagon train, makes it all the way out to Cheney, Washington by that winter, hunkers down there. By 1884, he gets up to Elmira. That's where the Kirk homestead is set up. So ever since that time,
Wow.
every Kirk that's been in the United States is buried in this state,
Wow.
buried in the state of Washington.
Wow.
Every single one. Okay. And just a month and a half ago, I put my dad in the ground. My dad was 93. I had a great run with my dad.
Yeah.
Great run. 93. I'm 54. We had a fantastic run together. But we put dad in there. And so I got to be honest with you, when I'm on websites in the evening looking at real estate that doesn't have a Washington address,
That's hard.
it pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because I take it very personally, because that's not just my state. That is my family state, right? We're all in the ground there. And that's the way I want it to be.
That's a hard
And I don't know if it's going to be possible anymore. And that's really offensive.
You know what? That is hard because I don't have that family legacy, right? We're almost on the front end of trying to start that legacy. And, the way I look at it is going all the way back to 1883, like you said, when he came over here, there was a point. This isn't a pitch for you to move to Idaho. It's just why we moved, right?
Yeah.
We looked at it when we were talking about moving. We kind of had, all of our family had been down in Southern California. Not that we had that legacy or anything else. We have a broken family. And, but it was one of those things where when my wife and I decided to move, I said, somebody's got to make the choice for our family to move to a place that's going to give better opportunity for the future, for our kids, for our grandkids, everything else. And we were the first ones to move up here. Now we're super fortunate. My in-laws moved up. My mom moved up. My sister and brother-in-law moved up. Her family moved up. Now we have dinners with, Christmas with 30 people at it. But it was a step that we had to take because that's why we looked into North Idaho. We said, this has got to be a better opportunity for the people in the future. We're going to love it, right? We're going to see it, but we had to leave everything behind to make that step. And it was scary because it did suck because I left everything that I had, my friends, my career, everything.
Yeah.
My wife is a twin. So, when you marry a twin, you get 2 wives for the price of 2, actually.
Tell me more about this.
Yeah,
For the price of 2.
The price of 2. No, but the good news is I don't think they'll probably watch it, but my wife's twin sister is really cool. And her husband's a great dude too. So I did luck out there, but he was very successful, started a hot tub business from the ground up.
Yeah.
Just a high school graduate, but he's just got this amazing work ethic. So he did it the old fashioned way. He worked his ass off. And a year ago, they're like, we can't do it anymore. And they liquidated everything. They sold their house in Duval. He sold the business. And they packed up and they went all the way to South Carolina.
That's scary.
This is
And they
why
love it. They love it out there.
Yeah.
And I was just out there a couple of weeks ago visiting them, and I can see why they love it out there.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Because people live free like Americans.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is why I tell people that there is some pushback from folks that grew up here in North Idaho. Like, don't California my Idaho. You'll hear that, of course, right? I tell people that make that argument, like, you don't understand the sacrifice that people like us and many others are making to leave where they're at. So it is that important to them to raise their family or their family in a place with the values that align, that they're willing to make these huge sacrifices, sell their stuff, like sell a house, pull the kids out of school. I moved here with I didn't know anybody in this town, but we were willing to do that because it was that important to us to get away. So, if people are that committed to a cause, they're not going to come here and make it the same as where they came from intentionally. Right. So that's my argument to them. I was like, come on.
But you have a lot of people, Californians,
Yeah,
who want to move here simply because it's a better financial move.
Yes, that
That's
does
true.
happen. You're right.
And they bring all their crappy politics with you.
Yeah.
With them. And listen, I saw this. I grew up in Seattle, Washington. Okay. I remember when Seattle was the biggest little city in America. And then I remember when the kind of the 80s rolled around and the Californians started coming in. And at the time we thought it was cool because there was a huge influx of cash. And then all of a sudden, you get Microsoft starts kicking off and everything, and boom, away you go. And you turn into a big world-class city at the time. Right. But unbeknownst to us, they brought all their shitty politics with them.
Yeah.
All of it.
Can I jump into 2 questions here real quick?
Of course you can, man.
I'm pulling these off. This one is just too good to ignore. Hold on. Spec wrote here. I'll pop it up on the screen. How much trouble would I get in if I shit on the governor's doorstep? Maybe you can answer that from a lawful side, right?
Well, yeah. You wouldn't do any prison time or anything.
Right. You could do it on the street of Seattle, right?
If you do it on the street of Seattle, I mean,
but is it different when you cross that threshold of a doorstep?
You're probably going to get cited with criminal trespass, maybe a little malicious mischief.
Unless you're in San Francisco, this shit's everywhere. So
yeah,
it's good.
But the good news is they don't really dust for shit, so I don't know if they'll ever be able to tie it to you.
Are they going to DNA test it? That's the question, right? Just don't get caught. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Here's another one. And this is more of a comment. Mox the Ox. What's up, man? I hate how it's being made out that if we want our rights, we have to leave. That sucks.
Let's talk about that in the fight in these other states.
Right.
You brought that up earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so for Washington people, they're on pins and needles right now because we've had a useful idiot in the governor's mansion for about 12 years now. The problem is the evil mastermind that's behind all of this is the attorney general who now wants to be the governor. His name's Bob Ferguson.
Hi, Bob.
Is he friends with Governor Newsom by chance?
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah, they were partying during COVID at that big get together
and all of that stuff.
Right.
And then 2 of our legislators that were probably the most influential in disarming Washington residents and tying law enforcement's hands behind their back with legislation. One wants to become the attorney general, and the other one wants to become the insurance commissioner. And a lot of people, in fact, the video I'm going to have out probably tomorrow, I shot it out at Doubleback Winery out in Drew Bledsoe's winery, by the way, out in Walla Walla there. But it's about that insurance commissioner race, because what a lot of people don't realize is that the insurance commissioner can screw you good. For example, in Washington State, nobody can get concealed carry insurance in Washington State.
Oh,
want to know why?
Yeah,
because the current attorney general labeled it as murder insurance.
No way.
That's what he called it. It's unlawful. It's not allowed in Washington State.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Welcome to the People's Republic of Washington.
How long did it take for this slide to happen, right? I mean, was Washington awesome 10 years ago?
Washington was slipping 10 years ago. But in I would say the last 8 years in particular, Washington has really kind of gone off the cliff.
So prior to this, was Washington comparable as far as freedom and rights as Idaho?
No.
Okay. Still never as good?
No, never as good.
Okay.
But Washington was always this quirky little baby blue state that what I used to say, there's a sign right outside of Aberdeen, Washington. It's actually because Kirk Cobain's from there. It says, "Come as you are." It's a line from a Nirvana
that's
song,
cool.
right? Yeah. But that was the thing about Washington. You could come as you are.
Yeah.
So whether you wanted to be a right-wing religious Bible thumping freak, or you wanted to be a left-wing blue hair nose ring, they, them, or anywhere in between, you can come to Washington and be yourself.
Right.
But that we've lost our way, because now if you don't look a certain way, act a certain way, and vote a certain way, they don't want you in Washington State anymore. And you guys are experiencing that through the influx of your business here in North Idaho.
Yeah.
And I know it's not just unique to you. I know Idaho in general. You talk to realtors in Montana, Wyoming, Utah. There's a lot of Tennessee, I guess, is one of the fastest.
Tennessee
growing,
is
blowing up right now. In Florida, we know, because people, they want their freedoms back. And it's, here's the thing. It's not a political thing. Everyone thinks that it's a political thing. There is a natural human desire to be free. It has nothing to do with politics. We are born as wanting our freedom. That's why it's called an inalienable right? I think that human beings want to be free, period.
Well, if we go back to this guy's comment on like he hates the fact that they're being told just to flee. What is it that in your eyes that people can do if they're in Washington, Oregon, California, and they don't want to leave because they have a legacy there and they want to protect those rights? You know, we just talked about this with the state representative.
Jordan Redmond.
Yeah, Jordan Redmond. So we're talking about the voting. He got voted in on, and only 10% of the people voted. So that's a problem, right? I mean, that's even in a red state.
Yep.
Only 10% are voting. So how do people like that in Washington, what is it that they can do? Is voting the only way? Is it, what else do they do to help protect?
Well,
that?
voting is certainly the best way, but there's a lot of other organizations you can be involved with that helps support causes, helps push legislation. An organization that I'm really fond of in Washington State is an organization called Conservative Ladies of Washington. It's not just for ladies, but they really do a lot of amazing, good legislative work. So really in Washington State right now, if you're going to stay there, it's either you're going to have to bend over and take it, or you're just going to have to dig your heels in and start fighting. And I would say do the latter. Dig your heels in and fight. It's your state. It's worth fighting for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think people get backed into a corner so far. I mean, they're just fed up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what happened with the Revolutionary War, right? People got backed in and they finally said, you know what? I would rather live free or die.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's not a thing nowadays, because as I was talking about before we got in here, is people want to, you know, they get fired up, they go to their rally, and then they go home and they sit down, they eat Cheetos and they watch TV and they tune out. Yeah. It just becomes this cycle of, okay, well, I'm gonna just walk off and do my own thing now. It's not a lifestyle like it was when we had the Revolutionary War and we were fighting for something that we believed in so much that we were willing to leave our kids behind, our family behind, our jobs behind, because we thought it was so important. Mm-hmm. And that passion just, I don't see that.
Well, we're not teaching it in our schools. That's a big problem. Okay. We're not teaching the types of values that we should be teaching our young kids so that they understand. And is America perfect? No, America's got some bad chapters. Every country does. But is it the closest thing to perfection you're going to find? Yeah, it is.
Here's the deal. We as Americans have been numbed and dumbed for many, many years, right? Distracted with stupid ass reality TV shows that don't matter at all and pumped medication into us constantly. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to revolution tomorrow. It'll be a lot easier.
Well, and so one of the things that I really think that can help change the tides is through education. That's what I'm trying to do with Washington gun law. I've always said, hey, I believe that the Second Amendment debate can be won not through legislation, litigation, or any of that. I think it's won through education.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these issues can, because the truth of the matter is we do have the law, the Constitution, and common sense on our side on many of our issues. The problem is the way people are digesting news nowadays too. You know, they're getting on social media. They read a headline. I think I know the whole thing. You know, I read a headline, oh, time to go free Palestine or whatever, right? And they don't even have a concept.
Half of those people, you
the
can
complexity of the issue.
You could put a map right in front of their face and they wouldn't be able to tell you where Palestine is.
No.
Not at all.
No.
Can I jump into a couple more questions?
Yeah,
There's so many good questions popping up.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this, actually. How long will it take for Washington to get our semi-autos back?
I believe that the summer of 2025, everyone in the United States will be able to purchase semi-automatic rifles again, because the United States Supreme Court will strike down assault weapon bans.
Boom.
I didn't even realize that was going over on Washington.
Oh, yeah, we passed that last year.
Yeah, I stop at the border every time and then just turn around.
Yeah, so. I don't blame you.
So really, so you guys have a full,
2 years ago, through Senate Bill 5078, we banned high capacity magazines, or what we all call standard capacity magazines. Yeah. And then last year we banned semi assault weapons, or what we like to call semi-automatic rifles.
Or shocking. Does that include like Ruger 1022?
That's a 22, right? That's a rimfire. So
okay,
it says, if you really want to get technical, it's a semi-automatic centerfire rifle, which accepts a detachable magazine and has any one of the following components. And then the components are all the things you find on that platform anyway.
I had that,
like a muzzle brake, right? Oh yeah, of course it's got a muzzle brake on it, right?
I had that damn bullet button on my AR when I was in California. Stupid. I got up here and drilled that thing right off when I got here.
As a cop in California, CHP did not issue exemption letters for that. So I had one in my patrol car every single day sitting right next to me that I could access anytime, but I could not own one at home without a bullet button. That's how dumb that shit is.
Yeah. Saving lives.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's all about saving lives, guys.
But at home, we don't trust you. That just reminded me of something. Did I tell you about this? I got to bring this up and get your opinion on it. I have confirmed in California, CHP, and I'm sure it's happening elsewhere, has hired what is it, undocumented or illegal? What is it?
Newcomers.
They're not citizens.
Yeah, they're not citizens. That's
they
for
have
sure.
hired them as cops.
Uh-huh.
They've gone through all the training. They cannot take their duty guns home at the end of shift, and they have to check them in with a sergeant because outside of work, they're not allowed to own and possess a firearm.
What?
It has been confirmed to me.
Happening.
How does that work?
Well, there's federal law that says that. I don't understand how they allow them to possess it during the course of their employment.
I don't either. It just seems like a huge lawsuit waiting to happen.
It goes to show you what's happening with law enforcement recruiting when we're having to recruit illegal aliens into and I know that's perhaps not the correct nomenclature, but I really don't give a crap because they're here illegally.
It's illegal. Yeah, illegal aliens. You're not here legally.
Yeah.
Anybody can come to America. That's the amazing thing.
Right.
But you come here the right way. Yeah. You don't jump the border. Go do that in Russia.
If all three of us decided, shit, let's just move to France. And we just go move into France and
Negative.
After a couple months, they're going to come knocking on the door and be like, hey, you have a visa to be here? No.
Yeah.
Well, then get the hell out.
Go jump the border into Russia, see what happens.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And there may be some great people in that group. I don't mean to downplay that, but that just seems weird to me. And it just seems like a problem coming.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I got off the rails there a little bit. Okay. Oh, man. So many. Oh, there was another one.
We do need to hit up talking about the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
And the history of it. And then also the Castle Doctrine, too.
Okay. We got 36 minutes. One more. This one's about insurance and CCW insurance in Washington. So what do you think about attorneys on retainer for insurance? One of the few I could get because it's not technically insurance. So I think for CCW insurance, having an attorney on retainer.
Yeah, AOR, attorneys on retainer. I don't know much about them other than what I've heard. And what I've heard is good things, okay? If I had heard a bunch of really negative stuff like, hey, these guys leave you high and dry and stuff, I probably would tell you. I have not really heard anything bad. I am currently working with a company called Right to Bear. They're in 47 states right now. They're actually owned by Palmetto State Armory.
Oh.
And as you guys know, Palmetto State Armory, their whole goal was we just want to arm everybody. Okay. And so their insurance wing is, hey, we just want to get everybody covered.
Okay.
And so they're working not under an insurance model, but under an association model as well. We're working diligently to try to get it set up in Washington. It is available here in Idaho right now. And I think it's a fantastic product. And I think the way they've gone out and recruited attorneys, I think that you actually have some really good veteran seasoned attorneys standing in your corner to defend you. Yeah.
That is cool.
All right, maybe we should jump into Castle Doctrine.
Castle Doctrine. So this is pretty cool. So, like I said, I actually, surprisingly enough, I didn't shoot many guns in California. I mean, for my dad's gonna be like, well, he doesn't watch this anyways, but yeah, he was the type of person that we had 2 guns in the house, right? We had them hidden, all right, and then we had them separated from the clip, which my dad told me, right? And those were in the bottom of our sleeping bags.
Yeah.
I mean, everything complete. I mean, so I didn't grow up in a gun household.
Yeah.
I didn't really shoot. I maybe went and shot some 22s when I was younger, but until I went into law enforcement, and it was nice because when I trained, I didn't have any bad habits, right? So it's very easy for me to pick up what I needed to do and learn from the beginning. But anyway, so the Castle Doctrine was something that came up a lot and we talked about a lot in Idaho. And I asked you to kind of look into that, but a lot of people know about Castle Doctrine, defending your keep, your house, and being able to protect yourself on your property. What's the gist of the Castle Doctrine? Does it apply in both states, Washington and Idaho?
Yep. Yeah. So the Castle Doctrine has a lot of fancy names, stand your ground, Castle Doctrine. What I really like to call it is no duty to retreat. And the way the law works is that if you are lawfully in a location, you are under no duty to retreat if you are encountered with unlawful force. Flight, no matter how reasonable or likely or available it is not part of the equation to be considered in determining the reasonableness of your self-defense actions. So again, the force you get to use in defending yourself will have to be proportional to the force you're being encountered with. So the way I always say is, listen, whether you're in your house, you're at the Safeway, you're walking down the street, you're someplace where you've been invited, if you are lawfully in that location, you are under no duty to retreat whatsoever. Some states have varying laws, but when it comes to being inside your home, there is no state in the nation, even California, that requires you to flee from your home. So man's home is his castle, and he has every right to defend it. And in many states, the unlawful entry into a home constitutes a burglary, which is a felony which is being committed inside your home. Many states authorize the use of lethal force in that situation alone. He might only be there to get the TV, but you're not going to sit down and negotiate it with them, are you?
Right. But as a former cop, let me just throw this out there. Put a dang flashlight on that person and make sure it's not a teenager.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't want that on my conscience.
Well, and here's what I say in all my self-defense classes is I'm going to teach everybody what they have the right to do, but I'm not teaching you what doing the right thing is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where the tactical instructors come in. Because if you got a burglar coming through the window and you just flash them the muzzle and the burglar goes, oh crap, wrong house, and boom, out we go. And everyone lives happily ever after. That's a better outcome than I shot the dude dead and now I have to call ServPro to clean up the mess in my living room, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know who that senator was. I think she was a senator that made the statement. God, what state was she from? I don't know if it's New York somewhere, but she made the statement that, hey, if somebody comes in to your house and they go to steal something, let them do it because they need it more than you do.
That sounds like an AOC statement or something.
It wasn't. I would have known if it was her, but it was one of her colleagues. Somebody and I'm like,
squad.
That's a
squad
kidding
statement
me?
if I ever heard it.
Oh, 100%. I'm like, are you kidding? I wanted to know. I'm like, where do you live? Because I'm coming over there tonight and I'm taking what I need.
But you know, the problem we're having, and I don't know if this problem is probably not prevalent here in Coeur d'Alene, but back home is, so we've depoliced our community. We have gotten rid of accountability in the criminal justice system. So the criminals are emboldened. And more citizens are having to take the matters into their own hands. Because, you know, if you're in Seattle and you call 911 and say, I think someone's breaking into my house, good luck if someone's coming. It's not that they don't want to be there.
Right.
It's just they don't have the manpower to get them there.
Right.
And so you got a lot of people taking matters into their own hand. They're not tactically trained. They're not legally trained. They're not emotionally mature enough for it, and bad things happen.
Well, I think that's a lot of the stress on law enforcement is that people don't want to take anything. They don't want conflict. When the truth is, if there's something going on with your neighbor, you should feel comfortable going over there and saying, hey, we have an issue. Let's figure this out. People don't want to do that. They'd rather call mom and dad and have them come over. And it's usually the people that don't even support those organizations that are most apt to call them and say, hey, come over, handle my problem.
Yeah. So anyways, but to get to your point, the castle doctrine, stand your ground laws, no duty to retreats are a critical component of American self-defense laws. They're not unique to the state of Idaho or Washington. You find them in every state to varying degrees. Obviously, when you're in states like Texas, it's do just about anything you want, right? If you go to Texas and try to kill somebody, they will kill you back. That's how it works in Texas.
Well, that's what I tell people when they come up here. I get a lot of people that are moving in. They're like, hey, should I get a security system? I go, you know what? I'll tell you this. You live on 5 acres in North Idaho. This is not the place that you really solicit. And it's also not the place that you go kick a door, because that's almost a death sentence in North Idaho. If you go kick a door, there's people waiting.
So an armed society is, in fact, a polite society, isn't it?
It is very polite.
It's funny how that works out.
People have a tendency to have less disagreement. And because they know that it could escalate, and people are going to protect their stuff. Don't kick a door here. Bad idea.
All right.
We wanted to, so we covered that. Castle doctrine. Oh, here's the big one. This is like the big question on the table today is how do we keep North Idaho and states like North Idaho from becoming like states like Washington, California?
Well, we need more guys like you doing what you're doing. Okay, because listen, here's the reality of the situation. Idaho is going to grow. The secret is out. This is a fantastic state.
Well, according to some of the comments on YouTube, we are personally responsible for all of the growth in Idaho.
Apparently.
So,
I wish we were.
I wish you were, because you guys would each have an island in Tahiti.
Exactly. Right. I have an island in Idaho. I'd find a way to make an island here. Just a note.
Yeah, well, you'd have the money to do it.
Listen, my car doesn't even have speakers in it.
I can vouch for that. He drives a car also.
I just refuse to. It's the only quiet time in my day.
So the truth is you've got to keep growing it with the kinds of people that share the same values as what's made Idaho famous. Okay. And that's doing the work that you guys are doing, finding those people that, they have a tendency, former law enforcement veterans have a tendency to gravitate towards a more conservative political view. I hope that many of the people that are fleeing here for that reason. So you don't having to screen them. But again, it makes a lot of fun. If you're a bleeding heart liberal living in King County, Washington, and you can work in Coeur d'Alene, it makes a lot of financial sense to come here.
We don't get any of those clients. Honestly, I don't think I've had one. The people that reach out to us, they find us on our YouTube channel residing in North Idaho, and they watch our videos and they realize their values align with ours. And those are the people that call us, and they tend to have similar backgrounds as us.
And that's something, it's a big thing getting into the job that we do, because we don't go out and we we tried to do Zillow once. Just we're like,
Oh,
let's just
yeah.
try this thing.
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
You meet people that you don't align with, and that's not what I ever want to do. I want to be around people that have the same values as me, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. But the one thing that we try to encourage too, when people come to a state like this, you have to put back into it. You can't just come here and take things. You can't just come here and walk downtown and enjoy the trails and everything else and not sign up for a cleanup crew and not sign up to help out with the community and not support local, because otherwise it changes really quick. And that's what I'm afraid of, is because there are so many people coming here. Like he said, more people usually lead to more rules, more governance, and that's where things start to shift. And so I think that's a big fear for a lot of people up here.
And it's a legitimate fear. And it's something that everyone in Idaho, and I know I talked to BZ over at North Idaho Arms. He's always defend Idaho. And that's really what you have to do, is you have to defend the ideals. But the reality of the situation is you guys are going to continue to grow.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's just too nice of a place.
Yeah. 100%. We get calls, texts, and emails every single day from people that are looking to relocate here.
How many people know about the winters up here, though?
If they watch our videos,
I know you guys have been
very honest about it.
Because they're real winters up here.
Yeah,
they can
real
suck.
winters. Yeah.
They can suck.
Yeah, no, they were real winter. I mean, like I said, I went to college in Pullman. I went to law school in Spokane, right here in the same area. So I know the winters over here. They're legit winters.
The biggest challenge is the long period of cloudiness. We don't get like a crazy amount of snow. I think average is like 42 inches a year. But it's that long period of cloudiness and cold. It's dreary.
Right.
Days are short. That's probably the thing that breaks most people.
But it's like anything, right? I mean, that thing going around right now, you've seen it for the past couple of years. It really took off where it says, weak times create strong men create, good times create weak men, and so on. It's the same thing with North Idaho. You know what? I appreciate the summer up here. We don't vacation in the summer. We're here all summer.
I would. Yeah.
But it's because of the winter. I came from a town where it was blue skies and sunny every day of the year. Christmas looked the same as summer. If you just look outside, you're like, I don't know what temperature it is. It's just weird. Sunny. And people love that. People move to Florida for that. That's great. But it makes you appreciate it, because there is some hard times in the winter where you're like, man, we just got slammed with 2 big storms and it sucks right now.
Well,
but that's what it is.
And having lived here, the autumns in this part of it are absolutely fantastic.
Okay?
So good.
It is. Right. I mean, because you get this, like, going to Pullman, Washington, you're watching football and it's 75 degrees and sunny. And then at night it's nice and crisp. So you're sitting around the campfire,
That's good living.
Yeah, that's good living, man.
It's absolutely the best. But that struggle through the winter.
Yeah.
Doing those things makes you appreciate all the other stuff. And the falls are the best. And my theory behind that is because you go so hard in the summer. The second the kids go back to school and you can sit down and it's cool and you're like, oh my God. I just want to relax.
See, over here, you guys still get a September and even into October where you got some really nice weather.
Right?
Because in Seattle, Western Washington, about middle of September, it's just like they turn the mister on and it's going to be on for the next 6 months. You know,
I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't get super cloudy along until like January. You get through the holidays, and the holidays are fun and keeps you active, and you're distracted, and then January, February, March, you start to like, okay.
I have to take my wife somewhere every February because she's like, I'm done. There's too much.
Well, and you're getting like 5 hours of daylight at that point.
Yeah,
which is, if you're not from here, it's difficult. I mean, I'm born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, so I can deal with it.
The flip side is summertime. It's daylight from 4 to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap, that's a long ass day.
Well, yeah, but I played golf down in Walla Walla a couple days ago. We teed off at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. And there's still plenty of light by the time we were done. So
that's a cheap time too. That's good.
Yeah, it is.
Save
The
some money.
twilight rates are really good this time. You get a lot of holes in.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a cool place. And I think that a lot of people that do move up here, they realize that, hey, there's going to be some struggles. We're going to make some sacrifice. And that should be everywhere. There's no perfect place to go. There really isn't. And the reason it's green up here and beautiful, and the reason why we have more water in this region than just about anywhere else in the country, is because it rains,
right?
And we have snow. Like if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have the lakes, you wouldn't have the rivers. Those things wouldn't exist.
Yeah. So, if you're that conservative minded person out there and you're looking for a good community, give us a holler. If you're not, you got, never mind. I won't go down that.
Well, yeah, but let me put in a plug in for these guys, because what they're selling here, because this community is a lot more than just Coeur d'Alene. A lot of people got to realize that North Idaho in general, when I was growing up as a kid, my great aunt and uncle had a place on Priest Lake, right on the lake.
So good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on the lake. I got a good buddy. He's in real estate now himself. He's up in Sandpoint.
Yeah.
Right on Lake. I mean, if you guys haven't been to those places, it is truly God's country. Hayden Lake
amazing.
has blown up, and that's really nice out there. So there's a lot more going on in North Idaho than just Coeur d'Alene.
For sure. And, if you have questions on that, our website is an excellent resource for that. It's yournorthidahoagent.com. We've got, schools.
Well, that's something we try to
sports,
sell
all that
lifestyle,
stuff,
right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we did with our website. We should put something on there about gun rights and do a link, because that would be
We can
cool.
link to this podcast.
But like that's something we did with our website, is we put on there information about schools, communities, restaurants, sweet spots in town. You can register your kids for sports on there. You can read about churches. Like, that's the big thing, is that people, when they move somewhere, they gotta take in the whole thing. They gotta
and that's what I like so much about what you guys are doing, because you guys are trying to protect Idaho, and so you're selling a lifestyle.
Right.
You're not. Let's face it, the real estate turns out to be a footnote to the transaction in a lot of ways, right? It's, you sell a lifestyle. Now, if you're doing it correctly, the people you're going to attract, the people who are attracted to that lifestyle, are people of like-minded political beliefs, the people who are going to more fit in here with the way Idaho is.
Our biggest challenge right now is that all of the people that we're helping move up here, they're like, damn, we could be friends. And now I got so many friends. I'm like, how are we going to do this?
But they're cool people.
They're so cool. That's the point.
You're just such a cool guy.
No, I mean, they're so fun, and they're so
I'm hanging out with
like-minded. Yeah, thanks. It's great. And it's good, because, I tell people all the time, like, if you have your gender pronouns in your email, don't bother emailing me. That drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, I don't need that. I don't need that at all.
So those people don't call us, and that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Can we go back a little bit?
Yeah, we need
back to some gun stuff here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, Second Amendment.
Yeah.
We're talking about this earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I just want to hit it because it's important to me.
is.
Like, so many people view the Second Amendment differently today than they did back in 1776. We're 250 years old. Did I do the math right? Around
we
almost.
wrote it in 1791. We ratified the Second Amendment in
1791. So we're coming up on 250 years. However, when you look at the Second Amendment, people say it all the time, and I hate seeing it, where they say, why do you need an AR to hunt a deer? I don't use an AR.
Well, and in fact, in Washington State, hunting deer with a 5.56 is illegal because the round is not powerful enough.
Oh my goodness. So, yeah, and that's the thing that I guess in my question to you is, how is the Second Amendment viewed today or interpreted today versus when it was enacted in 1790?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me ask this question here. Let's talk about the needs. Why do you guys need to go to church? Why do you guys need to speak freely? Why do you guys need to be free from unreasonable government searches and seizures? We don't quantify our rights based upon our needs. Okay. Now, for those people who want to think that the Second Amendment was just written to protect hunting, let us remember when we ratified it. We had just finished a revolutionary war against a tyrannical empire, had liberated ourselves from it, and shockingly had done it through the use of firearms. Okay. And at that time, we didn't really have as much of a national military as we do now. So the entire purpose of the Second Amendment is not so much for self-preservation as much as it is to ensure freedom, because it is designed so that we can remove a tyrannical government if necessary. And we had learned it because we had just freed ourselves from a tyrannical government.
With the use of guns.
Now, for those people who are like, oh, but when they wrote the Second Amendment, it was just muskets. Okay. Right. You've heard that one before.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, they didn't know about AR-15s. Okay. Well, guess what? When they wrote the First Amendment, they didn't know about the internet either. And is there any doubt that the First Amendment doesn't protect that? Guess what? When they wrote the First Amendment, freedom of religion, you know how many religions there were recognized in the United States of America at the time? There were 9. You want to know how many of them weren't Christian? 0. So are we suggesting that the First Amendment only protects 9 Christian religions, or does it protect every modern religion?
Right.
Right.
Wow, I've never thought about it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, no, me neither.
So take a look at the Fourth Amendment. What the Fourth Amendment protects us from unreasonable searches and seizures. Now, the only unreasonable search and seizure that would happen in the 1790s is a government agent would just kick your door in, right? Do we say that the Fourth Amendment doesn't protect electronic surveillance nowadays? Of course it does, right? Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. How did we inflict cruel and unusual punishment in the 1700s?
Tar and feathering.
Tar and feathering and hang them, right? There was no such thing as a lethal injection.
Right.
Do we not analyze lethal injection cases through the modern Eighth Amendment analysis? So the Constitution and our rights grow with technology. The case law is very simple. From a historical standpoint, you cannot ban firearms that are in common use for lawful purposes, period. Okay? So that is why an assault weapon ban is unconstitutional, because it is a firearm that is in common use for lawful purposes. Had they implemented an assault weapon ban maybe back in the 1950s when the AR-15 first came out, there's a possibility that that may have withstood constitutional scrutiny. But at the point they're trying to do it now, the genie's so far out of the bottle, just like large capacity magazines. I mean, there was just a report by the National Shooting Sports Foundation that says 717 million large capacity magazines in the United States today.
Most of those are here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Most of them are here.
Yeah. An armed society is a polite
I've got
society.
a few friends that I think might have a majority.
That's why we're so damn nice around here in Idaho. So the bottom line is that the Second Amendment is more important today than it probably has ever been, because our government has probably acted in a more tyrannical fashion in the last few years than they ever have before. I mean, think about it. In my state, we got 200 troopers that aren't on the road today. Why? Because they made an independent health choice. We got 1,000 less firefighters on the road in Washington State. Why? Because they made an independent health choice. Decided they didn't want to get vaccinated.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
How many nurses? We're down a couple thousand nurses in Washington State. Why? The nurses. And if anybody should be allowed to make an independent health choice,
Right.
how about the nurses, right? Because
Right.
who really clearly know what the hell's going on, and they know the risk they're assuming, and they're big girls and big boys. They can do it for themselves. And that is something that our government in Washington State has never apologized for, and they've never rectified. They've never rectified it. Nobody has gotten their jobs back.
I hope people never forget that. And that's, I'm starting to see those starting to come up because it's election year, right?
Yeah.
And you're starting to see people posting the photos. And I think every person that's listening, you remember that.
Yeah.
Like, remember what was done to us as a nation and the division that it created too.
Intentionally.
Right. When all that stuff was there. The truth is that we have information overload. We were not meant to live like this. We weren't meant to live with everybody knowing what's going on in every other country. That when a bomb gets dropped in Israel, we know about it within seconds. You should know about that for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were meant to live locally with people taking in the information from your region. That's really the way we were meant to live. And now we have so much information. And when something like COVID hits, the fear is instilled. You hear if somebody dies, everybody knows about it. Where before you didn't know about those things. So it wasn't as prevalent.
The thing I would back up on that is that I think that we as humans are all capable of making large mistakes. I know I've made a lot of them. My wife reminds me of them all the time. But
we married to the same woman.
Yeah, exactly. But if you take ownership of your mistake, like if Jay Inslee in Washington State had done a press conference a year ago and say, listen, we were all freaking out. I was getting some bad data. We probably overreacted. I'm offering everyone their jobs back. Okay. Oh. With back pay, like they did in New York, like they did in Illinois, by the way. Okay. I think that a lot of people could be like, okay, I can understand. And you owned it. And 100%. Since you owned it, let's water under the bridge now. But they're doubling and tripling down and acting like they didn't do anything wrong. And candidly, I think they use the whole pandemic to differentiate who in this country is a lion and who's a lamb.
I got my theory on that, but
right.
I'm not going to.
Who's the lions and who's the lambs? And now that the lions all identified themselves, because they roared, and good for them. Now you're all on the hunt list.
Yeah.
Can you touch on how Washington used commerce law to jack up the magazines and
in Washington, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So in Washington State, when we ban stuff like high capacity magazines or assault weapons, we then also add an additional additional law that says any FFL that engages in the business of selling or offering for sale is an unfair trade practice. And so that unfair trade practice allows the Attorney General to fine a person. So I'll give you a couple of examples how that works. The gun store in Federal Way, South King County, that decided to sell a bunch of magazines post-ban. They had a chance to settle the suit for about $60,000. They decided to fight it. They got into their books. They got everything. And at one point, they were looking at about $19 million in fines. Whoa. At $7,500 a magazine, I'll tell you how many magazines they sold. Now, they ended up settling the suit for $3 million. But the owner of that gun store had to write a check to the state of Washington for $3 million. Okay. Now, the challenge we have going on in the Washington State magazine ban now is that we found a guy down in Cowlitz County, Southwest Washington, pretty conservative. And we found that in 3 election cycles in 12 years, it had gone from 41% Republican to 58% Republican. So there'd been this big red shift in Cowlitz County, and all the judges had come in during that time. So when we heard that Wally Wentz at Gators Guns was selling these magazines, and local law enforcement knew about it, we just kind of just let him keep doing it. And we knew that the attorney general would eventually come in and bust him, and he did. And he sued Wally, and he wanted thousands and thousands of dollars out of him. So we turned around and sued the attorney general's office and said, hey, the law you're trying to fine him under is unconstitutional. And we're going to argue it here in Cowlitz County. Yeah. And the Cowlitz County judge threw the law out. Wow. And then, ready for this? Our attorney general, who's going to wants to become our governor, had already communicated with the Supreme Court to let him know that if this happened, he would be filing an emergency motion. And a Supreme Court commissioner, not judge, commissioner, stayed the injunction 88 minutes after it was issued.
Oh.
And then during oral arguments, flat out said that he had pre-written the order. Wow. I was just waiting for it to come. So we had you know how in California you had that Freedom Week about a few years ago? Where we had a freedom hour and a half, 88 minutes of freedom.
Okay. So this just happened recently, right?
Yeah, this was a few weeks ago.
Okay. I remember BZ talking about it.
Yeah.
Because he had a whole bunch.
He was ready to go, you know, because BZ cannot right now take a magazine into Washington State. With the injunction, he was lawfully allowed to do so.
Right.
I think he did it. I'd have to ask him, but I know if he did do it, he would have done it in compliance with the law. There would have been that little narrow window of time, and that's when we did it.
He did. It's a great story. Maybe you're heading over there today. Maybe he'll talk about it.
I think I've heard about the decoy and all that.
Oh, yeah. There was an operation.
Yeah, it was.
But you're like you said, he was legally allowed to do it.
He was totally acting within the confines of the law. He totally was. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people hopped the border at that moment, came to his shop for that reason. And good for them. Like, it's a stupid law. So how do we keep that from happening in Idaho? That same thing.
You have to very carefully watch the Washington playbook for the last 15 years and do everything differently.
There's so much. The problem up here in North Idaho is people are like, oh, this is the way it is. It'll always be this way. And then we get 10% voter turnout and things like that start to slide.
Well, and here's the thing, Idaho, where you need to be really careful is that don't let Boise run this state. Right. You know, that's the problem is King County dominates Washington State. If you talk to people who live just over the border here in Eastern Washington, they will tell you that they feel like they've been abandoned by the state legislature
100%.
For 50 years now. That nobody cares about the folks in Eastern Washington. And if you're living in northern central Idaho, you do not want Boise controlling this state.
I would agree.
And I don't think that Boise is really indicative of what Idaho is really all about. I don't think Seattle's really indicative of what Washington State is all about.
Right. Yeah, certainly not Eastern Washington.
Oh, God, no, not Eastern Washington at all. Eastern Washington, they would secede and join you guys in North Idaho.
Oh, yeah.
There's already that state. Isn't it called Liberty or something?
Yeah,
Did they already draw that?
They would join in a nanosecond if they could here.
I think there's a map out there for Greater Idaho. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and then like, the folks in Eastern Oregon want to bail.
Right. Eastern Oregon, Northern California. There's like this.
Have you guys ever been down to the Willamette Valley or anything down there in Oregon?
Just like been through it.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Really?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. Great people. Great. It's just like when you get something about the West Coast, once you get close to the coast itself, everyone kind of gets nutty. But the further you get away from the coast, everyone kind of
that's accurate, right? Again. You've got the Bay Area, you've got Portland.
Yeah.
Well, if we can pull off Greater Idaho, we get a little coastline, which would be pretty nice.
Hey, good call.
Yeah, Oregon coast is beautiful.
Yeah,
the Oregon coast is way better than the Washington coast.
That's what I hear.
Oh yeah, 10 times better.
I need to go. I haven't been.
Yeah, Cannon Beach.
I've heard it's amazing.
Check out Cannon Beach, man. Manzanita, places like that on the Oregon coast.
Can I take a vacation this year? Is that okay? No. See, I'm not. Dave doesn't let me take days off. So.
No days off. Yeah. I'm gonna go golfing today.
You guys go play. I'm gonna go show houses and work.
Yeah, we're getting out on the Coeur d'Alene.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I'm excited.
They are just which is actually better. My golf game is I play once a year because I'm forced to. I borrow clubs from somebody, and that's me. So I would slow you down.
We played those last 3 holes in about 5 minutes last
when
time
we were running because
Yes.
we both had to work.
16,
and
17,
it's
18.
cold.
We were like, all right, it's cold. We're going.
The only 2 times I've gone to the Coeur d'Alene with him, it's been like 40 degrees and windy, and I'm like, it sucks. Wow.
I'm
Golf
looking
is
forward
great.
to it. I haven't played this course before.
Oh, it's
You're gonna love it.
beautiful. You will definitely.
I
love
said
it.
you get
is it hard or is it forgiving?
the first 6 holes, they do have a cool rule there is that you get a free drop if you hit it into the junipers. So there's times where I'm like,
There's a
the
lot of
junipers look
juniper.
pretty good over there.
A lot of
I'm gonna
junipers.
put it in there. It's a free drop. So there is some forgiveness on that, but for the most part, man, 1 through 6, yeah, so you can lose some balls for sure.
Damn.
And then once you
You
hit
have
the
to
floating green,
stack up
yeah.
and make sure I got enough ammo in
There's
the
a,
bag.
oh yeah. You need it. I did play 1 round where I used 1 ball, and I was pretty excited. I did all 18.
What was your score on that?
I think I was in the low 90s, high 80s. But yeah, I have it it's in the door of my car. It just bumps around, drives my wife nuts.
That's annoying, dude.
But I played the entire resort with 1 ball. That's like so happy. Made it everywhere. So
I just want to know if you make it on the floating green today. That'll be the big.
It depends on where they're playing. If it's out past 170, that puts a club in my hand. I'm not real comfortable with. If it gets in a little closer, I can put something.
We'll
in.
see.
Yeah, Dave will hit it again.
I got to tell you, my kid's a stick.
all right, let's see.
This is
And he's
gonna be
long.
I'm gonna.
He's really
He's
long.
tall. Yeah.
No,
but
he can go 3.25 off the tee all day.
Oh, geez.
I'm good for like 100. So
As long as you don't do what my best friend did, you make it onto the green for your first time, and you're in the sand trap, and you get out there and you hit it out of the sand trap, out of the floating green into the water. That was awesome.
So do you do a lot of shooting? Because you're a gun law guy.
I do. I shoot my handguns. I shoot predominantly over at Security Gun Club, where I do a lot of my video work over in Woodinville, Washington. Then I keep all my long guns at my Cle Elum place because I'm a member of Cascade Field and Stream Club up between Cle Elum and Ellensburg.
Oh, cool.
70 private acres out there, and they got steel out at 400 yards there and stuff.
Nice.
So I shoot the long guns out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. Well, next time you come out, we're gonna have to go shooting. There's something
Let's do that.
I can hang with.
Yeah. No.
Golf,
let's do that.
man, not good, but guns, yeah, I can hang with that. That'll be a good time.
Let's go.
That'll be a real good time. Gentlemen, we are 1 hour and 6 minutes. We can maybe we ought to wrap this up. We have had hundreds of comments on here, some really good comments. So thank you guys if you're out there and you're dropping comments. I can't get to them all. I've been trying, but then it distracts me. And
Well, we can take a look at it. Maybe we can readdress some of these.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
good.
Good stuff. Really good feedback. Thank you guys. And we've had about 300 people watching the whole time, which is cool. You think about it that
Awesome.
way, you're
Cool.
like, wow, that's a lot of people out there.
Awesome. Yeah.
Good stuff. Just one more shout out to our buddy BZ at North Idaho Arms. He's over there in Post Falls, Idaho. Great shop. He's a great guy. He is literally taking action to protect our 2A rights, and that's a big deal that a lot of people can't say up here. So we thank him for that. You are heading over there after this, right?
I am. We're going to go do a video. Let me put a plug in for these guys because I've gotten to know these guys, and I got to tell you that I love the business model you have because you're a real estate company that doesn't talk about real estate.
Yep.
And it's really, really awesome.
Dave and I actually both hate real estate, to be completely
well, no,
honest.
but what you're very passionate about the lifestyle and the freedoms that people get here. So I'll just say to anybody, if you're really looking at making the escape from the People's Republic of Washington or one of these other states, contact these guys, man. They got it going on. They got a great office. I love what they're doing. And if you haven't been to North Idaho, it really is God's country.
Yeah. And if you do end up reaching out to us, you want to check out the area, let us know. We like to set time apart so that we can actually meet people that are coming here and really try to help you not just run around, like a chicken with your head cut off, at least give you ideas of things that you want to see, places you want to go, stuff you want to eat, so that you can really explore the area. So we'd love to help you if you're looking into that.
They should just come up here and stay a couple days so they can just take it all in,
Yeah.
get the whole lifestyle. It's an incredibly friendly community.
It
too.
is.
That's the other thing I love about it.
It is.
So, yeah.
It's funny when you see some people that have California plates. I've seen it quite a few times. They'll have written in the dust on the back of their car, "This is a rental."
I see that too. I love it.
yeah.
Get the tire slashed.
So funny.
No, we don't have it that bad, but
No.
it is funny. It's
Yeah.
kind of a joke now. Or they take the California plate and they now put a strip of red on it, a strip of blue, let it just kind of blend in a little bit. Yeah. Very cool.
I love it.
Thank you for coming out.
Really
Thanks for having
awesome.
me, guys.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yep. Great
Seriously,
conversation.
Thanks so much
Yeah.
for having me here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Check us out. We are yournorthidahoagent.com. That is our real estate website. Our YouTube is residing in North Idaho. We have a podcast on there as well that just deals with the Idaho community. So pretty cool stuff. Great people up here. And of course, if you're one of our people and you're just finding out about William Kirk, hit him up at Washington Gun Law, his YouTube channel, and make sure to subscribe to both of those. And thank you again, guys. We will catch you next time. End stream.